So then I asked what I think is probably the most important or interesting question that our field needs to consider. So, with the anticipated increase in neuromonitoring case volume and considering the anticipated number of available credentialed technologists, when are we going to hit our inflection point when we don't have enough CNIMs to monitor the volume of cases? Or another way to think about it is, at what point is the average CNIM going to have to start monitoring well over 240 cases per year, like significantly increase their volume? And the answer is 2027. Look at this graph.
So Rich hit on something so important in that video. I think doing the work of seeing where we're at as an industry, it's a little daunting to know that we might be out of CNIM techs in 2 years. So I've been in neuromonitoring since 2007, which is a very long time. When I started, I worked with HB Calder at Biotronic, and I was trained by the lovely Kent Rice, and I've had tons of opportunities, but I kind of came in at the beginning of neurologists, where not every case had oversight. Even when we were non-CNIM techs, we still were in there providing technical support for cases. This was just in the beginning of when they started billing insurance, so there was still pretty healthy reimbursement from a hospital standpoint, and then very much the wild, wild west of insurance billing because they were all just figuring it out. So fast forward to 2023, when I left my company, Northwest Monitoring, up in Seattle, Washington. COVID has affected reimbursements. It was a really tough time, which is a big part of why I walked away. I'm a pretty optimistic person overall. For those of you that have ever met me personally, I can always kind of find a silver lining, but it was really hard to find a silver lining after, 3 years of COVID and dealing with hospital shutdowns and reimbursement fights. We owned a medical billing company as well as a neurologist team on top of starting a company in India. So all of those factors just kind of had me feeling really frustrated and not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Not only that, I started working with AlphaTech System, SafeOp System, and a few others, and I realized that because we weren't getting reimbursed, and not a lot of people know this, but you don't get reimbursed for most cases below L1 unless it's a tumor. It's just insurance rules. So I kind of saw a solution in that system. The automated system, they've got Sentio, they've got, the M5, they've got SafeOp. I think more are coming out. Rich's work with Nevro, with AI. It is taking some of the cognitive burden off of techs that maybe don't need to be there for EMG only cases and pedicle screw cases, and certainly probably don't need a neurologist online and billing the patient. I don't want to open a can of worms there. That's my 2 cents. I think there are much brighter and more technically savvy techs and professionals in this field that can argue that all day long. That's just my 1,000-foot view perspective from being in the medical billing world and running a company. But when I started working with another group, I kind of recognized that the things that I was leaving neuromonitoring for was, I felt it was not going a great direction. There was a lot of negativity in the industry, a lot of infighting, a lot of holding cards to your chest, not wanting to share information. And I really thought for an industry that was supposed to be so focused on patient care, it didn't feel like that anymore to me. So to Rich's point, we are losing CNIM techs. This is a real problem. And I think the main issues are, one, there's not a lot of growth in our industry as far as career growth. I mean, what can you really do? You can become a clinical manager, and we've kind of seen tons of burnout in that space. A lot of people go to clinical management, and it's like trial by fire. And then, they either self-demote or they leave the field or they get promoted to director. And a lot of times, those aren't even the best leaders who get promoted to director. They maybe are just meeting their KPIs, really impressing their bosses. Or you can go into business development, which was kind of my route. But it's few and far between, not a whole lot of opportunity there. And then you get to VP level and ownership. we don't see a lot of neuromonitoring professionals, honestly, make it to that level. It tends to be outside people, outside expertise. So, what do I think we could do differently to make this field better? First of all, leadership needs to stop promoting people to management and just hoping they figure it out. They need to give them tools to succeed. They need to do some training. They need to make sure they're good people leaders. Second, I think they need more sustainable pathways. I think people who come in, and I do think some companies do this really well. I think they lay out the tracks for what you need to do to become a tech. But outside of the tech space, getting access to the other parts of the company are really challenging. So I think if companies really want to retain people, they need to show alternative pathways to grow, or they might continue to lose people. The third being the tech piece that I mentioned. I think integrating some automated systems for cases that don't require a tech, so the techs can go cover more complicated neuro cases, or really the cases that require a neurologist oversight, and the advanced level of certain techs versus, the bulk of the cases being 80% spine, then maybe don't need a tech for every single case. Doing a hybrid model would be an amazing way to kind of look at this, and not looking at neuromonitoring as such a black box. It's just a really good way to open up the field and also create a little bit more camaraderie for other industries and other professionals in the field. The other is, I think there's so much burnout in the field. We have to figure out a way to manage it. Rich's comment about, the fact that we are losing more CNIMs year after year and the caseload keeps going up is really concerning, because that is certainly not going to help burnout. It's not going to help companies that are trying to cover more cases with less people. Our industry has a reputation problem. It does. People don't want to join it. They don't feel like they can grow. They might do it for a few years, and that becomes extremely expensive for companies. We need to rewrite the narrative, and in order to do that, we have to find a place where CNIMs can actually thrive. So that is what I am trying to do. I hadn't posted on LinkedIn, honestly, for a long time, especially about this, because I didn't really feel like I had a solution for it. My, MO in life is, if you don't have a solution for a problem, there's really not a whole lot you can do by bringing it up, bringing it up on LinkedIn and being like, we have, this problem, besides just taking care of it within my own company, which is what I felt like my best solution was. I now feel like I can offer resources outside of the space I was in. So that is my hope doing this, is to share resources with you guys to keep more people in the industry and better people in leadership. What I would love to see too is more people engaging in this conversation. I appreciate the engagement on my posts and the comments. And I would love, if you guys see some problems that you would like me to shine a light on or talk to other professionals in the field, shoot me a DM. Write me an email, please. I would love to hear your take. If you don't want to comment for fear of your company lashing back out at you, reach out to me privately. I will not mention your name, I promise. But let's start shining a light on these problems. Let's start collaborating as an industry or ways to make it better. I am not the most technical savvy person. I will never claim to be the best tech, but I do think the value I can add is in the leadership, in the empathy, in the professional development space. And I don't think that's a space that's been overly explored in our field. And it's about damn time. So at any rate, I appreciate you guys engaging and listening, and feel free to reach out. And I'm really excited, I guess, for opening up the conversation and seeing what we can do once we start having it.